Velkommen tilbage til min kanal Sainabou. Den her dokumentarserie er som sagt et forsøg på at sætte ord og tanker på nogle af de bekymringer, jeg har, når det kommer til hele den teknologiske udvikling, og særligt den måde, teknologiens manipulerende mekanismer påvirker os alle sammen. Der er jo ingen tvivl om, at den teknologiske udvikling har haft sine positive sider, men desværre også har haft en masse negative sider. Men i virkeligheden burde vi måske hellere se på, hvor humane er de mennesker, som sidder i førersædet for teknologien, og hvor humane er vi mennesker, når vi anvender teknologien. Den nye indoktrinering lyder: i fremtiden vil du ikke eje noget, men du vil være lykkelig. Spørgsmålet er så bare, hvem kommer så til at eje alting? Politiker Ida Auken drømmer om fremtiden, skriver Berlingske Tidende. Velkommen til år 2030, skriver hun i et blogindlæg hos World Economic Forum. Jeg ejer ingen bil, jeg ejer intet hus, jeg ejer ingen apparater, og jeg ejer ikke noget tøj. Hvordan kan det overhovedet lade sig gøre?
You've probably seen the news. Just a few weeks ago, Facebook announced that they're changing their company name to Meta because they're planning on building something called the metaverse. I don't think enough people are talking about this. The metaverse is going to change my life. It's going to change your life. So we need to understand what it is, why people are excited about it, but then also how it has the potential to end society as we know it. The concept of the metaverse is this. Throughout history, we have constantly been moving towards more and more engaging mediums. We've gone from text to photo to video. We've gone from reading books and papers to now spending most of our spare time watching TikToks on the internet. And the metaverse is what comes next. An internet that you're not just looking at through a screen, but that you're actually inside of. Take anything you could think of doing right now. Shopping, chatting with friends, meditating to ASMR videos on YouTube. And now imagine that in the time it takes you to just snap your fingers, you could be doing that thing in a way that feels real, with other people who feel present in a setting that's whatever you want it to be. A living, shared, everlasting, virtual universe. That's Meta's vision of the metaverse, achieved through a combination of augmented reality and virtual reality, which they've said that they will subsidize the cost of in an effort to get as many people on this planet to be a part of the metaverse. Just to get the obvious out the way, the metaverse will allow you to live out your fantasies. In one single evening, you could be slaying enemies in hand-to-hand combat. You could be playing a quiet game of chess on the streets of New York and surfboarding across the tropics of the Bahamas. All with incredible realism, but at the same time the reassurance that you yourself are safe at home. And on a similar note, there is also a comfort to the idea that you'll also be able to express yourself however you want to. You know how now you have a profile picture for your social media accounts, the image that represents you to other people? Well, in the metaverse, you won't just have an image, you will have an avatar. A fully three-dimensional living depiction of you, but you in the way that you would want to be. Did you ever wish you were 3 inches taller? Now you can be. Did you ever wish you had a bigger forehead? Now you can have one. You can be any gender you want, you can be any race you want, you could be any creature you want. Yes, Milo, I choose you. And to be very clear, longer term, your avatar is not going to look like these cartoon people. I think they just use them to make it seem a little bit less creepy. The truth is though, Meta is also working on the tech to create completely lifelike avatars, fully rendered with every hair on their head and every pore on their skin. This is not a game, this will feel like real life. And what I'm saying is that this realism, combined with the sheer amount of choices you'll get, will allow you to feel like you're not being constrained by the body that you were physically born into. In real life, you could be someone with a severe disability in a wheelchair, but in the metaverse, forget walking, you could be able to fly. And if you are enjoying this video, then a sub to the channel would be uplifting. Each person will have their own home space. You create the aesthetic that you want others to see, and then you can invite people to just appear within it. Wait, what the? Teleportation will be the equivalent of just clicking a link in your browser now. Practically instant. And if you compare that to the concept of real teleportation, of literally deconstructing every atom in a person's body at one point in time and then recreating them somewhere else, I think one of those two options is more likely to be the future of transport. And it's not the real one. Besides, if we are moving towards the metaverse, and if all interactions are going to happen virtually anyways, we wouldn't even want to physically teleport. We'd want to be at home with our headsets.
Oh my god, I'm lost, man.
And it's not just travel that will speed up massively, it's also learning. You know how now we look at libraries as really old-fashioned? Because, why would you try and find out info from a book when you can Google exactly what you want? Well, the metaverse is going to make Googling it seem just as old-fashioned. You'll be able to learn about things by just touching them, or even hell, looking at them, and you'll be able to obtain that information in a more visual, interactive way than we've ever seen before. You'll be able to travel not just to any place, but also to any time. The Industrial Revolution, ancient Rome, the dinosaurs. Being able to actually experience living with the dinosaurs, can you imagine? And hey, if you can learn faster, you can also do things faster. I think the metaverse is going to make us even more productive.
Take the current situation. A lot of us now are working from home. I mean, to be honest, I never really had a proper job, but you know what I mean.
Well, in the metaverse, we'd still be doing that, but it could also mean that you could always be in your most optimal environment, whether that's surrounded by others or completely alone, whether that's in an office in outer space or sitting in a magical jungle, whether you're surrounded by Beethoven's symphony while you work or just like the sound of silence. It's up to you. Plus, the tech will allow us to input faster. A lot of us have grown up writing everything with pens. Nowadays, people are shifting to tapping things on keyboards. In the metaverse, we'll be using voices, gestures, and even making things happen by just thinking about them. I'm not joking, Meta is working now on electromyographic, or EMG, input devices, which can detect and intercept the impulses in your nerves, the signals from when your brain is telling, for example, what your fingers, what they should be doing, and translate those signals to the corresponding actions in a virtual space. Or in other words, you will be able to send a message to someone by just thinking about moving your fingers. You won't even need to physically move them. And this metaverse hardware, it's not as far off as you think. Fun fact, next year, Meta is coming out with a headset, currently being codenamed Project Cambria, which in one fell swoop will apparently solve two of the biggest current barriers to the metaverse. One, that it will be comfortable enough, and the display will be sufficiently close to the resolution of your eyes that you won't feel like you're wearing a headset. And two, it'll be able to track your facial expressions in real time. Which, if pulled off correctly, will mean you'll be able to have conversations with realistic body language in a virtual space. So, these are the obvious benefits from the metaverse: experiences, expression, teleportation, knowledge, and productivity. But there's also a couple of potentially unexpected ones, like the environment. See, producing real products is really inefficient. The production of a real car, for example, can quite easily result in 20 tons of carbon dioxide emissions. The production of a virtual car? 0.00000000000000000. You name a number, 1. And that gap in emissions only gets greater when you start to talk about potentially using that car. I totally get that the idea of a virtual car sounds very odd and not at all comparable, but think about it. In the metaverse, we have teleportation. Both virtual cars and physical cars are just as useless as each other. You'd only drive one if you specifically fancied a drive, not actually to get anywhere in particular. And so, what I'm saying is that it's quite likely that the more users that join the metaverse, the more we shift towards purchasing digital goods and digital experience. And so, the fewer planes, trains, cars, ships, delivery vans we're going to use, and thus our impact on the planet might well nosedive. And the final kind of exciting thing is that the metaverse will also be a new economy. Meta is developing a store within it called Horizon Marketplace, which is not just them selling stuff to us, but a platform where anyone can be a seller. You could create virtual clothing. You could craft a new virtual experience and charge people to try it. You could design a completely new world.
Anything. And you're no longer constrained by the physical materials you can get hold of. Only your imagination and your ability to code.
And I've got no doubt that every forward-thinking brand will also make sure that they have a presence here. Because, I mean, if we're spending all our time in the metaverse, and that's where we're going to meet people and appear to others, then our virtual appearances and our virtual homes are actually going to start to matter more than our physical ones. The point is, in a new world, you will also have new opportunities to earn. So, honestly, this whole metaverse thing has a pretty great sales pitch. The ability to be together with anyone, to be able to teleport to anywhere, to be able to create and experience anything. But it's also pretty scary. There's 4 key things that I think we need to be very mindful of. Like data. Let's be honest, Facebook has had a pretty rocky relationship with how it's handled user data in the past. And remember, that's from an era where we were still somewhat separate from our digital selves. But in the case where we become our digital selves, where our profiles are not just a few holiday photos that we choose to share, but literally everything we do in this metaverse, we're going to have to put a whole new level of trust into a company that doesn't exactly reveal how they're using this information. We're talking about data collection on the level of measuring your brain activity. You wouldn't even give your family that kind of access, but this is a future where you could be giving it to Meta. But something potentially even scarier than the data problem is that we are talking about how companies will be able to create virtual experiences that feel indistinguishable from real ones, right? I mean, on one hand, that is a miracle, but isn't it also a little bit alarming? We are already being shown predominantly only the content we agree with and the content that we want to see. But if you take that concept into the realm of the metaverse, we could completely lose touch with what's actually real. The power to curate not just your newsfeed, but your entire world now means that if you hate seeing homeless people, well, your metaverse can pretend that they don't exist. If you didn't think COVID was real, in your version of the metaverse, it wouldn't be. If you only loved one tech brand and hated the rest, in your metaverse, that's all you'd need to see. You won't even really know if what someone is saying to you is actually what the person behind that avatar is saying, or if it's just what Meta wants you to hear because it will keep you on the platform for the longest. Or let's say one of your friends' accounts got hacked. You could be sitting in the same room as a cyber criminal and you wouldn't even know. We'd effectively be surrendering control of our entire sense of reality to other parties, whose incentives are nothing to do with our best interests, just making sure that, I guess, you see as many adverts as possible. But there's more. You might not know this, but one of the biggest challenges of running a social media platform is actually in the moderation of it. Facebook already has entire warehouses filled with people who are just scanning for the absolute worst things people are posting. Hate speech, terrorism, exploitation, and just trying to prevent as much of it as possible from spreading. But it's one thing to try and police written text, where you can very easily scan for potentially harmful keywords. If Meta want to carry on this moderation in something as complex and as open as the metaverse, then they're going to need to do it in a way that's incredibly invasive. They're going to have to be watching exactly what tattoos people's avatars have, what the writing on their clothing is saying, every single item you design or purchase for your home space. Every action will have to be monitored if they don't want it to turn into chaos. Okay, these are all concerns, but do you want to know what my most fundamental fear is about the metaverse? It's that we talk about all the cool things it will enable for our avatar, that they'll be able to do what they want, look how they want, experience anything, but it all leaves a big question about what happens to us? At the end of the day, right, as incredible as the technology is, we're still people. We still need to eat healthy, we need to drink lots of water, we need to work out, meet a partner, have a family, and I'm not convinced that the metaverse is going to help us continue to do that. I think the metaverse is effectively the next generation of social media, with all the positives and the negatives of those platforms taken to the absolute extreme. You'll experience the highs of immersive shared experiences like never before, but also harassment in a way that feels far closer and more uncomfortable, misinformation that's more convincing, and activities that are more addictive. It's being pitched as something that will sit alongside our real lives to complement them. But I can't see a world where it wouldn't become our lives. In a world where something of this power exists, you won't be able to just pop off your headset and carry on with your day as normal. The metaverse will feel no more optional than the internet does now. You'll need it for work to get the required productivity, you'll need it for social opportunities because that's where all your friends are, you'll need it because, relative to your life in the metaverse, your real life will kind of suck. Can you imagine every night taking off your headset and going from this handsome prince who's just won the approval of your entire clan on an intergalactic voyage to then seeing your actual self in the mirror and remembering that you're not that person, that you don't have the perfect face and body, and that you can never do the things that your avatar can do? The incentive won't be to start looking after our real selves because we can never get there. It'll be to actually put our headsets back on and spend even more time in the metaverse. And I think this will apply to jobs too. The metaverse video shows us an example of what I can only assume is an architect, who in the metaverse can productively design buildings with his team. But if you really think about it, assuming the metaverse becomes what it's setting out to, we're not going to need the buildings that they're designing. Matter of fact, in a world where you can just tap a few keys and have whatever you want appear in front of you, surely most people won't have jobs. In the realm of technology, it's increasingly possible for more things to be done by the few people who know how. You won't need engineers, you won't need gardeners, you won't need window cleaners. You'll just need people with ideas and people who know how to turn those ideas into virtual goods. We talk about the future as driverless cars and hyper-connected cities, but if the metaverse takes over, we're not going to need cars, we're not going to need cities. All we'll need is a good internet connection and a seat. Okay, the last thing I'm going to say about this is that the metaverse is not one thing, that one moment it's not there and then suddenly it is. It's not a question of if we're going to get there or how we're going to get there. The metaverse is actually here, it's now, and it's only going to keep evolving towards what the company Meta is talking about. Just take Fortnite. This started off as a game, but it's now so much more than that. It's become the platform in which a whole generation of people hang out. They go shopping in, they even attend concerts in. A fun fact, I recently got some graphic design work done for my channel, and the guy I hired asked for payments not in dollars, but Fortnite V-Bucks, because to that person, buying in-game items was more valuable than buying real-life items. The metaverse is not just a Facebook thing. It's the universe that all of these big tech companies together are slowly but surely pouring tens of billions of dollars into creating together. Facebook is just the first one to make its part in it official. I think it's an inevitable future, but there is one thing that I think could ease a lot of my concerns about it. To keep the metaverse open source, i.e. to make sure that all the code of how it's working remains public. So that'll mean less concerns about your data, less concerns about spying. It'll be less about, trust us, your personal information is safe, more like, I can see that my personal information is safe. And while this will probably make development slower, because with open source projects there is much less of a profit incentive compared to keeping your secret source behind closed doors, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that will give us more time for the regulation and people's thinking to catch up with the technology itself.
De folk, der til at starte med forstod, at overvågningskapitalismen havde været en stor sejr, sagde nu, alle skal have en mobil, om de så skal have den gratis. Som vi også så det, da vi købte et abonnement, og lige pludselig alle vejen fik en mobil gratis. Og som de sagde, jo flere der har en mobil, og jo mere de bruger deres mobil, desto mere data strømmer der ind i vores forsyningskæder. Det de kalder for adfærdsdata. Vi ved, at Facebook ikke er bleg for at stjæle vores private og personlige data. Og på samme måde er det med Google. Og ligesom Facebook, så er Google heller ikke villig til at dele informationerne omkring, hvordan deres virksomhed fungerer, når det kommer til vores data. Naturligvis fordi Facebook er en virksomhed, og det samme er Google. Men i andre dele af verden er Facebooks hensigter for hver dag blevet mere og mere klare. Men vi har brug for folk, der tør at tale op omkring det her.
By now you've probably heard that Facebook is scrambling to contain the fallout over a data privacy scandal. Mark Zuckerberg finally addressed the story on Wednesday, but only after a delete Facebook campaign had started to gain momentum around the world.
So this was a major breach of trust, and I'm really sorry that this happened. We have a basic responsibility to protect people's data, and if we can't do that, then we don't deserve to have the opportunity to serve people.
So how do we get here, and how does Facebook recover? Well, first of all, let's figure out what happened. So on March 16th, the New York Times and The Guardian reported that a data mining firm named Cambridge Analytica, which had worked on Donald Trump's presidential campaign, had improperly obtained access to more than 50 million user profiles. Experts believe the firm could have used that data to gain an unfair advantage in targeting voters. Mark Zuckerberg didn't say anything about these stories for 5 days, and then on Wednesday, he wrote a Facebook post and gave an interview to CNN.
I'm going to challenge you.
We're here now.
I'm going to challenge you. Have you
and
done
we're going to
it?
make sure that we do a good job at it.
Have you done a good enough job yet?
Well, I think we will see.
This scandal is extremely weird because we've known the basic details that Cambridge Analytica got access to these profiles for more than 2 years. It's not clear that the data they obtained was really all that useful to them, and the number of profiles that they supposedly obtained, 50 million, that might turn out to just be marketing hype from Cambridge Analytica. Despite all that, this is the biggest public relations crisis Facebook has faced since the aftermath of the 2016 election. Senators are calling on Zuckerberg to testify, the Federal Trade Commission is investigating, British authorities are investigating, and Facebook's stock price has been declining. So let's look what happened. The story starts in 2014. That's when a University of Cambridge researcher named Alexander Kogan created an app called This Is Your Digital Life. About 270,000 people downloaded it. gave away their information, and Kogan, unbeknownst to them, passed along that information to a data mining and political strategy firm named Cambridge Analytica. At the time, Facebook's platform API let developers like Kogan access information about your friends as well as yourself. Christopher Wiley, who used to work at Cambridge Analytica, told The Times and The Guardian that that was how his company was able to get access to information of as many as 50 million people. And the idea was that by gleaning your Facebook likes, the company could begin to understand your personality and then more effectively target political advertising at you. This kind of thing is known as psychographic profiling. Experts say it can be useful at the margins in persuading voters, but at the same time they say its effect can be easily overstated. Granted, Trump's campaign wasn't the first to gain information about potential supporters using Facebook. In fact, in 2012, President Obama's election team had created an app and done a very similar thing. But there was a big difference. President Obama's team told voters what it was doing. Cambridge Analytica obtained this information in total violation of Facebook's rules and didn't tell anybody who was taking Kogan's personality quiz that their data would eventually be used for political advertising targeting. The Guardian revealed the scheme in 2015. Facebook went to Kogan and Cambridge Analytica and demanded that they delete all of the data that they had obtained in violation of Facebook's rules. But the reports say that in reality, Cambridge Analytica and Kogan never deleted the data, and Facebook never investigated to see whether they had deleted the data as promised.
Facebook havde så meget data omkring 6,6 millioner mennesker i Australien tilbage i 2020, at de kunne forudsige, når eller hvornår alle de her mennesker var allermest påvirkelige. Hvornår de eksempelvis var allermest stressede, deprimerede eller underlegne. Facebook alarmerede så deres forretningskunder om det nøjagtige tidspunkt for, hvornår de her mennesker med høj sandsynlighed eksempelvis havde brug for et selvtillidsboost. Herefter sendte de forskellige forretningsfirmaer, de let påvirkelige Facebook-brugere, en annonce på eksempelvis en lækker læderjakke, sendte dem en rabatkupon og tilbød dem gratis levering til døren næste morgen. Christopher Wiley, ansat i det britiske selskab Cambridge Analytica i 2018, var en af de første, der slog alarm over for nogle af de metoder, der blev anvendt af den politiske markedsføring hos Facebook.
These companies appear to do far more than simply show us personalized advertisements. The British company Cambridge Analytica, for example, used Facebook data to analyze how American voters could be manipulated. Psychologist and data scientist Michael Kosinski designed a model to psychologically analyze people based upon their Facebook profile, but then refused to sell his model to Cambridge Analytica. And yet the company still used Kosinski's method on the Facebook data of 87 million Americans.
At the time, do you think they copied or stole your research?
It doesn't really matter, because these days computers are doing science, which basically means that if you know that something is possible, you don't need to know my magic sauce and my magic equation. You just ask your own computer to design your own. So it doesn't really matter. These days, computers are doing science and not humans.
Cambridge Analytica uses what Kosinski calls psychographics, a model in which an algorithm uses online data to exactly determine someone's personality. With this extensive knowledge, the best way to influence people during elections can then be determined. Alexander Nix, the suspended CEO of Cambridge Analytica, explains.
Because it's personality that drives behavior, and behavior that obviously influences how you vote.
So if I'm a human psychologist and my brain is just a human brain, I'm limited to those like systems, models that contain 5 variables, or maybe 7 variables, or maybe 10, or maybe 16 variables. That's what humans can handle. Now, if you're an AI psychologist, if you're a computer algorithm, you do not have to reduce people to 5 numbers. You can, well, from statistical point of view and from a predictive power point of view, it's still actually worth to reduce people somewhat to lower to less dimensions, but you would reduce them to 500 numbers or 5,000 numbers. Now, you would actually call those 5,000 numbers 5,000 psychodemographic traits, something akin to personality. But it's way more complicated and allows you to capture way more variance in human behavior, allows you to be way more accurate about predicting the future. We should be afraid and we should be cautious because algorithms, artificial intelligence, like any new technology, is, first of all, we don't really understand it very well. It definitely brings a lot of risks as well as great, amazing advantages. Now, we've seen it in the past with nearly any new technology that humanity came up with, that there were advantages and disadvantages of it. Now, in order to reap the advantages and to avoid the risks, we have to talk about the negative side of things. We have to be worried of manipulation, of abuse of AI, and maybe AI doing things that are undesirable. Computer algorithms are getting better at turning the digital footprints of behavior that we're leaving behind into very accurate predictions of our future behavior and of our intimate traits. On the other hand, we are leaving an increasing amount of digital footprints behind because we are increasingly surrounded by digital products and services. You want to walk around with your face uncovered and talk to people freely. Now, just this data that we voluntarily leave behind is already enough for a good algorithm to create a very good prediction of who we are and what are we going to do in the future. So basically,
on the basis of facial traits.
Or like my recent research suggests, even based on a still image of your face, the computer algorithm can reveal a lot about our psychological or psychodemographic traits. So now going forward, we basically going to have to no privacy whatsoever. And the sooner we start talking about how to make sure that the world, when there's no privacy, is still a habitable and safe and nice place to live in, the sooner that the larger our chances that we'll be able to survive this transition. And not only survive on the individual level, but also survive as societies, as democracies.
You know, people talk about the singularity. They talk about the singularity is the moment when computers take over. I don't worry about that at all. I feel like we are handing ourselves over to the computers. We're doing it. It's our singularity. There are actually people, the evangelists of data from Silicon Valley, who are pushing this vision that the algorithms that are so good at predicting for us should be given more power, that we should listen to the algorithms to decide who to marry and what career to have and where to go to school, that we should actually sort of hand over our free will to the computers. That's freaking nuts. It is freaking nuts. Technology should be giving us more options, not less. We are becoming slaves to the technology. We are entering in that vision of the world, like we are enslaving ourselves to this technology. It makes no sense to me.